the social media derby. Before we get into the episode, for those of you watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, drop a comment in the comment section, share if you can. Anything you can do to help with the engagement would be super, super appreciated. For those of you listening on Spotify, Apple, or any of the other podcasting platforms, please follow, give us a 5-star review if you can. Any kind of support we really appreciate. Let's move on now, Jonts. We've got a special segment this week. I think we had a special segment last week, so we're doubling up. Since the Premier League Hall of Fame the nominees announcements were made in the last couple of days, we thought we'd do our own selection of this year's edition of the Hall of Fame inductees. Unfortunately, the Premier League has gone and screwed us because they've already announced that Ashley Cole will be one of the 3. So we'll pick the other 2 that are left over from the pool of nominees. So before we get into that, John, I'll just read out, first of all, who's already been inducted into the Premier League Hall of Fame since it was created in 2021. So we've got Alan Shearer, Thierry Henry, Eric Cantona, Roy Keane, Frank Lampard, Dennis Bergkamp, Steven Gerrard, David Beckham, Wayne Rooney, Patrick Vieira, Sergio Aguero, Didier Drogba, Vincent Kompany, Peter Schmeichel, Ian Wright, Paul Scholes, Tony Adams, Petr Cech, Rio Ferdinand, and then, of course, Ashley Cole has just been inducted in the last couple of hours. So then let's also look at who the pool of players are that we've got to pick from. And then I'll also ask you, actually, Johns, at the end, we can each make kind of a wild card pick of someone who isn't from these nominees that we think should probably go in there as well. But this year's 2024 nominees are Sol Campbell, Michael Carrick, Andy Cole, Jermaine Defoe, Cesc Fabregas, Les Ferdinand, Robbie Fowler, Eden Hazard, Gary Neville, Michael Owen, David Silva, John Terry, Yaya Toure, Edwin van der Sar, and Nemanja Vidic. So let's get into our picks, and Johns. Who's going to be your first, or the second in this case, because Ashley Cole's the first, inductee in the 2024 Hall of Fame?
I'm going for Andy Cole.
Get in.
And I'm doing it because I think he's massively underappreciated. I think when you listen to him talk as well, I think he understands also the fact that he is massively underappreciated, part of a legendary Man United team, and he was, again, underappreciated because he was a really big part of that team and an important part of that team. When you listen to the Filthy Fellas interview about, him going through all of his time at different places and what it kind of came down to, he was just a silent assassin, really, wasn't he? He didn't really want to talk too much, just came in, banged goals in, and f***ed off home, basically. So I think he deserves... Yeah, I mean, if we're looking at the rest of that list, I mean, there's a lot of newer age players in that team, in that list, who obviously, done a lot for the league, but I think we got to look back to the foundations of the Premier League, and I think Andy Cole was a big part of the foundation of that Premier League, big part of the team that really defined the league in that first period. And I think he deserves plaudits. So I'm going Andy Cole, mate.
Yeah, no, 100% agree, bro. He's also my first pick. One of my favourite Man United players of all time. Obviously, we've joked around about how we got to support in our teams when we were young and stuff. And when I was first picking, teams that I wanted to support, obviously our mum supports Man United, but I had my own favourite players. My favourite strikers were Alan Shearer, first of all, but the next one on the list was Andy Cole, and he was part of that 1999 treble-winning side, my favourite ever Man United side. I know a lot of people say the 2008 team was a better team, objectively speaking. People might be right individually when you look at all the the players that we had, but that 99 team, man, it was just a beautiful blend of young academy players, some of the best British talent, some of the best foreign talent, and just like a squashbuckling rock and roll, they call Liverpool now, but I think the original rock and roll team in English football was that Man United team. around that period. We didn't have like, you know, tiki taka, pass the ball a gazillion times, but what we did have was really effective players who could control the ball, two-way players. Think about this, Johns, as well. People forget, I think now, right, how hard it was for midfielders in that day and age to play as a two. You had Roy Keane and Paul Scholes going back and forth, both of them attacking, both of them defending. The same with Patrick Vieira, who's already been inducted, and Emmanuel Petit, and then Gilberto Silva. It was two-way midfielders. It was so hard, and with strikers, it was probably a bit easier because you had two strikers, you know, in 4-4-2 back in those days. But that Andy Cole, Dwight York duo was one of the best Premier League duos we've ever seen. And I've seen some people gas Steven Gerrard and Fernando Torres as a duo, and undoubtedly they were a very good duo, but they don't touch Andy Cole and Dwight York and some other duos. Dennis Bergkamp, Thierry Henry also come to mind. Those duos were heritage Premier League duos, and for me personally, Andy Cole was my favourite out of the two. And I have to agree with you completely. The personality thing also, for me, is a plus. In the day and age of all these outgoing, super outspoken, you know, wanting to be glitzy and glam and all about me type players, Andy Cole was about scoring goals, providing for his family and whatever, and just being, a man to himself. And I think he's an absolute legend and someone who's so underrated. It's unbelievable. And yeah, when obviously I don't know if you remember, John, he had some liver problems, and there was a period of time where he was really unwell. And yeah, that was scary times, man. You want Andy Cole around, not only for memories and stuff, but because yeah, that filthy episode was really interesting. And I know that those guys all make fun of him for the Ras in the back of the net and all the jokes about how he was talking. But Andy Cole is legend, man. And I think is he top 5 English goal scorers in the Premier League history? I think he's high up. I know he's definitely in the top 20 overall, but he's someone who's criminally underrated. And I was saying to an old mate of mine from Sky, Nathaniel, big him up. One of my favourite Man United players, man, and one of his as well, and just absolute legend. And I think he needs to go in. You're right. Some of these new age players are ballers, but you got to remember your roots, innit? You got to remember the heritage of the Premier League, and I think Andy Cole's part of that. All right, let's go on to your second one then, John. Who's your second and final pick?
I'm in two minds about this one because there are a lot of other players on this list that I think could go into it, and it's kind of harsh that I can only really pick two. I don't disagree with Ashley Cole, though. I definitely think he should be in there, despite the fact that he's a bit of a rat.
Cashley.
But yeah, exactly. But I'm really stuck between two players, and I'm gonna say both of their names. I'm stuck between Yaya Toure and Cesc Fabregas. And the reason I say that,
okay.
Yeah, so the reason why I say that, and here's my argument, right, is like you've got players like John Terry on that list who are madly decorated, have got so many appearances for highly successful teams, but I just feel like in terms of like how their impact on the league was not that significant, in my opinion, right? Like I don't think John Terry really changed anything about the centre back position in my mind. I know people like to say he was good on the ball and all that other stuff, but I think of his time, he was second or third best. He wasn't actually really up there.
Wow.
No, I mean, and so like when John Terry was playing, I think Rio Ferdinand was always better than him, right? And there's arguments to say that Vidic would have been better than him, like, or could have been better than him, right? There's arguments to say that he was not the best in the league at that time. Do you know what I mean? So when I look at Yaya Toure, I don't think there were any arguments. Like when Yaya Toure was playing at the peak of his career at Man City, there was no arguments that he was, like, in my mind, the best central midfielder. I don't know if you want to put him in the cam position, whatever you want to do, but he was the best central midfielder in that position in the Premier League for a sustained period of time. Right? And I would argue Cesc Fabregas was in that conversation too. I think at a point, based off of the impact that he had for both Arsenal, who were a team that underperformed the whole time he was there, essentially, and then at Chelsea, where he was actually, they did perform decently well, and he was kind of critical to their team. I kind of feel like, he had more of an impact on the Premier League itself than some of the other players on this list. And I would say, like, you know, it feels harsh because, like, obviously there's so many great players on this list. Like Michael Owen, I think he did have a defining impact, just kind of was somewhat short-lived by the fact that he went overseas. I think David Silva was also madly underrated and had a mad impact on this league as well. But I don't know, maybe it's the Arsenal kind of biased rose-tinted glasses that I've got on, but I'm really fighting in between Toure and Fabregas at this point. And really, I mean, I can't win here. Doesn't matter who I choose. Everyone's going to say, "Oh, you didn't choose Eden Hazard. Oh, you didn't choose bloody Van der Sar." I know I'm going to get shouted at regardless. So I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to take off my rose tinted glasses and I'm going to say Yaya Toure is my second pick.
Okay, yeah. To be completely honest, Yaya Toure was someone that I think he's one of the best midfielders we've ever seen in the Premier League, and I don't
100.
know all of the reasons why he's not given the flowers. I think the birthday cake thing is kind of just a convenient joke excuse that people use to kind of criticize his personality, which I think is super unfair. I think also he's one of those players, unfortunately, that people just. I think Park Ji-sung was guilty, was unfortunately one of these players as well, where people look at him and the way he looks and define how he was as a player based on their stereotypes around that type of player. I think Park Ji-sung, in a lot of ways, was hardworking and, maybe some of the Asian stereotypes, but he was also many other things. And I think Yaya Toure was the same. I think, of course, he was strong. He was P&P. He was power. He was physical. But also, he was unbelievable.
His
in terms
technique
of
was disgusting.
Technique was 10-10. It was amazing. His close control was beautiful. He used to glide with the ball, or glid, as I said another time that you guys made fun of me. But he was one of the best midfielders we've ever seen. And if he wasn't from Ivory Coast, if he wasn't African, if he was Brazilian, if he was Spanish, if he was French even, right? I think he would be in that next echelon of midfielders, and people would put a lot more respect on his name. I think he's one of the greatest African players ever, and he's definitely one of the greatest midfielders we've ever seen. And it pisses me off to say that because he went to bloody City. I so badly wish we did the reverse Tevez on them and we nicked him after he left City. But sadly, we weren't able to do it. But I would have loved him in our midfield because, yeah, he absolutely terrorized Michael Carrick, another man on this list, who I think is also criminally underrated, by the way. But I think some of the toughest games Carrick ever had in his career were against Yaya Toure. And I don't blame him for that because, boy, it's not easy. It ain't easy, as Saeed says, to defend against Yaya Toure. So I was very tempted to pick him, man. I have to admit. He was high up that list for me. But I actually did end up going. Go on then. Who do you think I'm going for?
No, I'll let you say it, but I want to see if I'm right afterwards. Go on.
I don't think you're right because I actually went for Vidic, but I was actually the closest that I was between was Vidic and Terry. That's why I was quite interested by what you said about John Terry, because as much as I hate him as a person, and he's a massive S house and all that business. Big up Wayne Bridge. I'm with you, bro. He's still one of the best defenders we've seen in the Premier League, and I think when we have these debates right now about Van Crybaby, he's up there. John Terry's up there. Vidic is up there. Rio's up there. Those guys are undeniably up there. Then probably throw in maybe a Stam or a Campbell or someone else. But I think those four are definitely in there. And as much as stylistically, I prefer the Rio Van Dijk style, you can't have that style without the Vidic, John Terry. And I think you have to give them props. And I think the thing that tipped it for me, right? And you're gonna maybe think I'm an arsehole for this, but a bit of my logic involved in this was not only just the eye test and how good they were as a player in their position and the impact and influence they had on their team, but also the personal and team accolades that they got as well. And Yaya Toure got a lot of team accolades. I think he may have won Premier League Player of the Year one year. I think when he got the 20 goals and 20 assists or whatever it was, or the double-digit goals and assist season that he had from midfield. But Nemanja Vidic won. I think he won the Premier League Player of the Year 2 years, and I think he's the last defender to win it, and one of a very small group of defenders to ever win that award. And I think there was a time where he was better than Rio. I don't think overall he's better than Rio. I think Rio was my GOAT centre back in Premier League history. But I think there was 1 or 2 seasons where Vidic was more important and he had more standout performances that drove us across the line to win the Premier League or to win the Champions League. And so for me, it's super hard to not put him in if I have the option to put him in. And looking at this list, you have to have a big Man United weighting on it because we've won 13 Premier Leagues out of however many there have been. So I think on this list, Andy Cole has to go in. He's the first choice.
You've already got half the list, though.
Yeah, we should have more than that.
Just by yourself? No, you should.
Yeah, we should. We should have more than that. We've won 13 Premier Leagues,
definitely
mate.
Shouldn't.
Yeah,
but look at some of the teams that won those leagues. They absolutely stank, mate. So we can't
only
use
the last one.
Team accolades and all that, because then you're just going to have to put all City players or all Man United players in there. No chance.
No.
So basically, what you're saying is, you said, all right, out of all this list, we're going to go for 2 Man United players. How unbiased are you, sir?
No, I told you, I was also gonna put in Yaya Toure or John Terry, but to be honest, we can't both pick the same list as well, right? And if we have to choose slightly different players, then I'm definitely gonna pick Vidic over Terry. But that's my only decision from the rest of this list, because there is an element of not only what you thought they were as a player, but the accolades they had as a player and as a team. And Vidic won 4 or 5 Premier Leagues, Champions League. He won the Player of the League, Player of the Year 2 times. He was a legendary defender, and I think I would put him in if I only had 2 choices. If I had 3, I may have made a different decision. But again, we should touch on the Ashley Cole thing. I agree on him, by the way. I think he should definitely go in there. I think he's probably the best left back we've seen in Premier League history, and arguably maybe the best fullback. Both sides, right? I don't know what you think, Johns, but there's a strong argument, left or right back. He's in the shout for being the best we've seen. So I think he's deserving to go in there.
Yeah, he had. I mean, despite all of the rattiness about his personality, he had everything you need as a fullback. And the longevity as well. You've got to think about the longevity of his career. The fact he did it at Arsenal, he did it at Chelsea. Like I mean, in my mind, yeah, he's the best fullback I've seen in the Premier League ever. So I think, yeah, he's definitely deserving of being on this list. I think, I mean, I'm shocked he wouldn't have gone in before even somebody like Tony Adams and some of I know Tony Adams is great, obviously, but I mean, I would have put probably Ashley Cole in there as maybe the first, even the first defender. I mean, even before Company and whoever else, I might have even put him in there first, because, like I said, it's rare that you see. Not only was he the best English player in that position, he was arguably the best in the world.
No, he was
for a prolonged period of time. So
definitely.
So that's another thing, is like there's people on this list, of course, that you could argue were the best of their time, but I think he was probably one of the most clear-cut ones you could say of his generation. He was the best in that position, and we've kind of had this conversation before.
I agree with you,
and I think he definitely deserves a spot.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I don't disagree with Vincent Kompany or Tony Adams being in the list. I just think they got in too early. I would have had Ashley Cole. I would have had Rio ahead of them. I would have potentially even have some players from this current batch maybe slightly ahead of them in terms of like being inducted. I do think they deserve to be in there though, but I just think the ordering may have been slightly wrong. I do have before we go for our wild card pick, Uh, do you not think it's a bit crazy that John Terry hasn't already been inducted in? Because I know you
I
said
think it is. I think it
you
is,
think
but I
it's
think
because of
it's
the
his
scandal
it's his
stuff.
personal things. Yeah, it's the personal things for
Mm.
sure. Because he's one of those English players that you'd expect everyone to love, but actually he ain't getting love like that, which is weird. Which is weird. So I think it's definitely the personal things, and just what he did off the pitch, all of that kind of stuff. I think has to sway it away from him. Um,
Mm.
because yeah, when you look at his career, how decorated he is, part of all these teams that got the fewest goals scored against them in the league and all this other stuff. I think you'd think he have to be a shoo-in for the award, but yeah, I think the personal stuff has not done him well when it
Yeah,
comes to
yeah,
getting
it's
these
got.
kinds of accolades after the fact.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think obviously the same applies. Sorry to Ryan Giggs because he's a big omission from this list. I'm
Yeah,
thinking if he wasn't out here doing whatever scandalous illegal behavior that he's been doing, he would have been on this list probably in the first batch. I would say,
and
and
has
maybe
he, has
John
he not
Terry wouldn't in
played
the
got the
first
most
batch, but
appearances ever as well?
I think he
Like for
either
one of the big
first or
teams, maybe he's one of the top.
yeah, he's either first or second. I think Gareth Barry might have more than him, but he's up there.
Oh god, yeah,
Yeah, we're not putting Barry in there anytime soon. Sorry, mate.
no chance.
Take that for the fans. But yeah, I
And City
think
fans.
Giggs is. Yeah, exactly. Double dose. All right, let's go for our wild card picks then. Who do you think that hasn't been nominated? Do you think deserves to go in, or would you pick if you had one more wild card pick? Who would you stick in there?
Somebody I think who deserves a nomination. So I had a couple people floating around my head, and for some reason I couldn't get a defensive midfielder out of my head because I feel like it's a position where people are criminally underrated. Um, so I had a couple of different ones, but then obviously the rule is that they have to be retired. So because I was going to say Kante, I was like N'Golo Kante. I
Mm,
know it's early, but he's going to have to get on this list sometime. So I would have said that, but I don't think he's retired yet. So obviously can't go on
not
this
yet.
list. But in that same vein, I know he wasn't in the Premier League for that long, but I think he redefined, like he created a position, and that was Makaleli. So I think
Oh,
Makaleli. I
okay.
know he's only, I think 5 years, right? I'd say Makaleli just for the pure fact that he kind of defined that position, and he was part of like a successful Chelsea team. I think he deserves a spot on this, especially if you're going to put people like Jermaine Defoe in here. I know he's obviously good and got a lot of goals, but like I'm talking impact.
Mm.
So yeah, I'd maybe say him, and again maybe like a Gilberto Silva. I don't know why I can't get DMs out my head.
Yeah, what's going on with you?
But I think
You're going for the boring
Gilberto
position.
Silva's less of a he's less of a I think he's probably give it a few years before he gets nominated for this, but I'm just thinking of like those kinds of positions because on here I can see so many like the typical striker uh wingers that are like cutting in all the time or the centre backs. You don't see like for example the fact that Van der Sar isn't already in this list is also kind of criminal because I would argue that he's on impact as important to the Premier League as Petr Cech. But he's just one of those positions that are kind of underappreciated, and I think Gary Neville will sit on this nomination list for about 10 more years before he gets onto it. So I kind of want to try and give some shine to some people and to some positions that don't really get a lot because there's going to be so many strikers you can think of. There's probably going to be a lot of centre backs, a lot of left wingers, right wingers like Pires and so on that you could probably try and force into the list. But it might be a while before we get some DMs in here. So yeah, I'm gonna go Makaleli maybe.
Yeah, I hear you. I completely forgot about the retired rule, but that does make sense, I guess, why Hazard has been included in this list, which I feel like is probably a bit
Yeah,
early.
too
Um,
early.
yeah,
Get
because
Gareth
I
Bale
mean,
on it then if you're gonna do that.
yeah, well, yeah, I was thinking about that too, but then Gareth Bale won diddly squat with obviously his Tottenham, didn't he? So he didn't win anything, whereas Hazard won a few leagues in the Champions League with Chelsea. Oh no, he didn't win the Champions League. He'd left then already, so he arrived after
Yeah.
the first one and left before the second one. So yeah, so I think he's probably a bit too soon. Um,
Wait a second. Hold on a minute. Is Cristiano Ronaldo not on this list already?
So this was going to be my pick, but he's not retired yet. He's not retired yet. So it's the same Kante problem, isn't it? It's the same Kante problem. But as soon as he hangs up his boots, he's in there. I don't think he gets even a nominees section. He's just he just
goes straight to the top of the list,
there.
and they just put like 2020. We put him in pre-retirement.
Fast track. Yeah, it's like fast track when you got you've got the what is it called on Ryanair or whatever, when you've paid a little bit extra to go on the plane before everyone else. He's definitely going to shoot
the
straight
e-passport.
in there. Exactly.
He's going straight through the barriers.
Yeah. But yeah, he's not retired yet, so it's a bit of a tricky one, you know. Another. Don't know why he was in my head, but he just sticks out because he was part of a really good Arsenal team, and then he bounced around a couple of different Premier League teams throughout his career. Nicolas Anelka's in my head, and when he first was at Arsenal, he was devastating. Like him and Overmars tore us a new one and helped Wenger get his first title. And then he obviously came back for Chelsea and he won a couple of titles with them as well. Obviously, he missed the pen in the Champions League final, which was great for me, but obviously sad for him. But yeah, he's someone that popped to my mind as a potential once I realised I couldn't pick Ronaldo.
What about an RVP? As much as I hate him, I feel like Robin van Persie did it big for Arsenal. He was one of our best players and our best player for a long time. Then came to you, immediately won your title, got the bloody title at the Emirates, so if I remember correctly. So yeah, like as much as I hate him, I feel like he's on impact, and the fact that you can prove it at multiple teams also kind of weighs on my head as well. That's why I was saying Fabregas earlier, because you've gone to two different teams and done it well at both of them.
Yeah. You see, when you were looking at DMs, God knows why you were just focused on them. I was looking at strikers. So Anelka was in my head.
But that's what everyone would do. That's why I did the opposite.
Yeah. Van Nistelrooy was in my head as well. Rude. For the number of goals he scored. He also he got us a league as well.
My thing is, if Drogba's on this list, Ruud van Nistelrooy should be on this list. Do you know what I'm saying? Like in terms of impact in my head, like they're kind of similar-ish. Like,
but the difference is Drogba was. Yeah, but Drogba, the big difference with Drogba is because his goal scoring record doesn't compare to any of the other strikers on there, right? Like, all of them absolutely shite all over him when it comes to the goal scoring record.
I don't even think he's in the Century Club yet, is he?
I think he just about made it, but like his low 100s. Okay. It's not big. Yeah. But I think his is all about his impact in the big games and the big moments. When Chelsea won stuff, it was because Didier did it. Against us too. I remember FA Cup finals where he, snuck in and scored and ruined it for us. So, yeah, he's definitely in there for that reason. But yeah, I was thinking along the lines of Anelka, Van Nistelrooy, RVP, and as much as Van Nistelrooy was my guy, more than RVP was my guy, I think that season that he had and the actual 2 seasons before that he had at Arsenal was such a high level. He was undeniably the best striker in the Premier League for that period. It wasn't the numbers of, Cristiano. It wasn't even, maybe the numbers and the heights of Mo Salah recently, but or Harry Kane. It was kind of Harry Kane-ish in terms of the consistency for that 3-year period. It was, mid to high 20s, big goals, taking his team to Champions League for you, on your end when he was at Arsenal, and taking us to the league title when he joined us. So, yeah, I think I'm going to go with RVP. And the fact that he's just at Old Trafford all the time and never goes to Emirates, extra points for him. What a G. He's us. That little boy inside him. He knew that little boy is a smart boy. That one inside him. He made the right decisions. And yeah, apparently his son is a baller. By the way, I've obviously playing loads of FM. I play loads of FM, and his son Shaquille, I think his name is, which is a great name as well, by the way, is like one of the wonder kids that they predict is going to be, become one of the best strikers in the game going forward. So we might be seeing another SVP going forward in the next few years.
League, mate.
No, come to United, mate. Come on,
Get
do the
out of
right
here.
thing. But yeah, okay, all right. So our picks. Let's quickly wrap that up. Then we've both gone for Andy Cole to join Ashley Cole. 2 Coles there, and then you've gone Yaya Toure, and I've gone Nemanja Vidic. And then our wild card picks. You've picked Claude Makalele. Uh, I love that.
Why are
And
you
I've
giggling?
picked.
Like, bro, he created the DM position as we know it today, man. Shut up.
No. I'm not disagreeing with that, and I actually like that you've gone for the unsung hero approach with your picks. But it's just funny, isn't it? Because I just was not expecting you to go for DMs passing it 5 yards everywhere to go in the Hall of Fame. But
Mate,
I hear
he's
you.
so
I hear
critical.
you. I hear you. I
Critical.
hear you. I hear you. And I've gone for Robin van Persie. All right, cool. I like those lists, man. I think we should be the ones drafting these nominees because, yeah, looking at this, get Robbie Fowler out of there, get Eden Hazard out of there,
Jermaine Defoe,
um,
give it a couple years
Jermaine
and then
Defoe.
we can come back,
Nah,
right?
Jermaine Defoe. Like it just seems like it's all over the shop, Like there's some players that are
Yeah.
there because they're actually greats in the
Mm.
Premier League and they've achieved huge things. I think Sol Campbell makes sense, Carrick makes sense, Cole makes sense, Fabregas makes sense. I think David Silva, John Terry, Yaya Toure, Van der Sar, Vidic.
Mm.
Obviously Gary Neville gets a lot of flack now, and I think people underplay how he, what level of player he was. But he was the 10th, 11th man in our first 11. So he doesn't really deserve to be on this list, in my opinion. Michael Owen is possibly the most boring person in football and doesn't know the Zim Zimmer tune, so he's marked down massively. He said, what was it? He said Zim Zimmeroo or something like that when the guy
Zim zim
asked
zim
him.
zim. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, he deserves to not ever touch this nominee list. I know he won a Ballon d'Or, but that was when the Ballon d'Or was like one of 3 personal trophies and not the one big one. And I still think he robbed whoever it was that year. I don't think he deserved it. Les Ferdinand, heritage, legend, but he's like Matt Letizia level of legend. You know what I mean? He deserves to be in that batch, not in this batch. So I'd say the same for Robbie Fowler. I'd say the same for Jermaine Defoe. I just think it's a bit all
If you're
over the
at
shop.
that level, you have to go and break some crazy record like Alan Shearer, where you just go and smashing goals left, right, and centre over and over again, right? Like you've either got to be mid-range, but an absolute baller to the point where you've got so many individual accolades, or you've got to be top of the top and then winning team awards and some individual accolades as well. You know what I mean? That's where I think we're at with this list, right? You've got Sol Campbell. He won stuff with Arsenal. Not a whole lot of individual accolades, so that's why I wouldn't bring him into it. John Terry, again, a lot of these players, you can look at them and say they were at a club that was one of the best and were winning things as a team, but also got a few individual accolades here and there as well. I think if you got all where you played at the best team, you've got loads of individual accolades and loads of team accolades, and you're already on the list. You got like players like Thierry, Bergkamp, Lampard, Gerrard. Like these are the kinds of players that you just go straight in. But when you get into the second tier, you've either got to be mid tier but like absolutely brazy like Shearer, or you've got to be top and have won some individual accolades as well. So with Michael Owen, I feel like it's longevity in it. He's like, and this is the Anelka thing too. He didn't reach what he should have reached in my mind, and that's why he kind of gets graded down a little bit. Whereas a lot of these other players really maximize their potential.
Yeah, but you know what? I would argue though. I see what you're saying because Anelka and Owen, shout out Micah Richards, burst onto the scene and they were like wonder kids, right? And they had unbelievable performances. Everyone thought they were going to be what Mbappe is now, right? They didn't quite fulfill it. I would argue though, I don't think Michael Owen ever got back to any kind of level where it was close to that kind of impact he had. Once his hamstrings went, he was done. He was a bit part player. He was a totally different player, and he was, bouncing around on benches in different countries in different levels of football, including Man United. So I'm not, completely, shiting on his career because it was an unbelievable career. And Nelka though came back and won titles with Chelsea and played at high levels. Like, he wasn't what we had hoped, but he was still very, very, very good, and he had a huge impact on those teams. Maybe he wasn't the main course at Chelsea because Drogba was when he was there, but he was a very good supporting cast. And yeah, I don't know. I also don't forget Shearer won a Premier League, so Shearer's kind of more in the Gerrard bag than he is with these guys. You know what I mean? Gerrard only won one Champions League and I think he won an FA Cup and a League Cup. Like, he wasn't hugely decorated, but we know his impact on the league, right? And Shearer's the same. I think Jermaine Defoe is just, and I'm not on them. Jermaine Defoe's got numbers, yeah? He was a clinical striker. Could have probably played at a higher level than he actually did play, right? I think he could have played at one of the title challenging teams if he wanted to. Les Ferdinand too, Robbie Fowler, Liverpool back then, so they were kind of in that bracket then, right? So they're not quite what we're talking about with some of these other dons. Even though I say Hazard's in there quite soon, he's won 2 or 3 Premier Leagues. Arguably was the best player in the league for a good chunk of the time he was in the country and in the league. He's up there. Silva's obviously decorated. John Terry, Yaya, Edwin, Nemanja, Fabregas. These guys have got. They've put in work. They've mashed work. So yeah, I think we should definitely, be involved in this process next time. Premier League, shout us. Some of these guys cannot be in here. But don't forget, guys, you can actually vote for who those 2 additional players will be. It isn't decided by a panel or something like that. It's purely decided by the fans. So you can go to the Premier League website and vote for who you think should be the remaining 2 inductees in the Premier League Hall of Fame and join Ashley Cole in this 2024 cohort. Interestingly, I wonder if they'll do any managers, because we obviously had Fergie and Papa Bengs go in last year. If there were going to be managers going in, John, who do you think should go in?
Are they going to do the stupid retirement rule though? Because if
let's
then
just
screws
say
it up a little bit.
Let's just say managers who've left the Prem. Who do you think? So obviously you can't
Mourinho.
think. You think Mourinho? Yeah,
Mourinho's got to be in there first. There's a couple of other ones like Bobby Robson and like some players, some managers like that I think that need to be in there for legacy. I'd say those kind of managers. But if we're talking about like the top echelon of winning stuff and doing all that, then I'd have to say Mourinho.
Yeah, I think Mourinho is a no-brainer. I think it's quite hard if you were to pick 2. The only other one I can think of, I think it would have
Ancelotti.
to be
for his Everton career.
No, but I'm seriously, I think it would have to be Ancelotti, because that Chelsea team he had was really good and they won the league. And I think he was very unfairly sacked. But that is the pool that you're fishing in. Once you've got Mourinho in there, you're kind of looking at Ancelotti,
Ranieri maybe for the Leicester thing as well.
Yeah, Ranieri's
got time.
It's all Italians, by the way. I've just realised the only Premier League winning leftover managers are Ranieri, Ancelotti, and Conte. So, boy, no, you've obviously got Pellegrini, you've got Mancini winning the first Prem that Man City have ever won. But yeah, I think I'd probably go Ancelotti or Ranieri for the vibes, for getting Leicester to win that. And I think Ranieri's just a lovable bloke, isn't it? Do you remember when he got screwed at Chelsea? Yeah. I think it would almost be poetic to get Ranieri and Mourinho to go in together, because Mourinho came and replaced them at Chelsea, innit? So yeah, let's go for that. Those are our shouts. All right, Johns, that was a really fun segment actually. And yeah, I really like this. I remember when they brought it in initially in 2020. And then with the first inductees in 2021, there were a lot of people moaning and saying it's, the Americanization of football. But I really like it. And I think it's a really cool way of honouring our legends from the Premier League. Yeah. And I'm really glad that we're
making sure people aren't forgotten and we remember the heritage of the league. Like in 20 years' time, people will have forgotten more and more about a lot of these players. So I think it's good to get them in there and make sure that their impact on the Premier League is recognised. It's the same stuff like the whole Frank Sue thing, right? Like back in those days, he wasn't recognised and he should have been. So I like it.
Yeah.
It gives praise and it gives flowers to people that have built the league up from what it was to what it is today, which is a gigantic money-making machine.
Yeah, exactly. And it's necessary. And it's necessary because, like you said, I'm sure you've seen trending this week as well. There's been a bunch of Premier League all-time 11s going out, and the amount of absolute, pimple-faced teenagers tweeting only people from this current generation in there. They deserve slaps. Respectfully, they deserve slaps because these are the forefathers. A lot of these guys in our Premier League history. So I think, we got to respect our elders and respect the people that came first.